just say no. Kids are too smart for that. They want science behind that, why they shouldn't be doing it.
Yes.
These kids could get a hold of this and that it was such high potency. Talk to your kid. Don't sit down at the dining room table and say, "Now we're going to have a talk." For a safe, healthy, and drug-free community. Watch Step Up to Save Our Children today.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Step Up to Save Our Children. Today, our topic is peer power, how one team has sparked change at her high school. My name is Denise Mayer, and I am the founder and the director of Step Up Anderson Township in Cincinnati. We are a coalition dedicated to a safe, healthy, and drug-free community. This podcast is attempting to meet parents and caregivers where you are, whether at home, exercising, or waiting for your child from sports, music, or ballet. This will be your opportunity to get valuable information, to educate yourselves, to talk to your own children with honesty, truth, and most importantly, authenticity. So my guest today is Sandalee Silva. And Sandalee is a recent graduate of Mason High School. It's difficult always to get teens' perspective on school culture, especially where it has to do with substance misuse. So today we are thrilled and grateful to have Sandalee. So let me share a little about her, and then we can get started. Sandalee is a recent high school graduate who will be attending The Ohio State University in the fall as a pre-med in the hope of becoming a neonatologist. Her Escape the Vape initiative has been implemented in Mason City schools as well as 4 other schools across the nation. She is incredibly passionate and loves to work with kids. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her little sister and dog, and in her other free time, she loves watching FI and movies, going on bike rides, crafting, and hanging out with friends. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Sandalee to this podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for letting me be here.
Well, I'm so impressed with your background and your future.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
think I'm very excited. And what a great, I was just with a newborn a couple days ago. So very interesting, very exciting. So, well, share a little bit about yourself. I did read a little bit, but, what your high school experience, I guess, was like so that we can get into what started all of this.
Yeah, so I went to William Mason High School. I graduated recently. William Mason High School is the largest high school in Ohio. So there was a lot of people for me to interact with. There was also a lot of diversity, which I hadn't seen before, since I grew up in Cincinnati, which was predominantly white. So that
Uh-huh.
was really nice to see at Mason High School. But overall, I would say it was a pretty good experience.
Well, what jumped out, and when did it jump out that there was any kind of a problem that needed to be addressed?
Yeah, so uh I was I was I was in virtual school during 8th grade because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and
Uh-huh.
during that time there was a lot of like ideation, especially on social media, about substances, which I'd been like witnessing. So I knew that there was a problem, but I didn't realize that it was as widespread. Like I'd heard about substances and drugs through my school's DARE program during 5th grade, but I didn't realize that it was happening at our school. So when I finally got to high school in 9th grade, um, there were some kids. I remember this day. There were some kids in the bathroom vaping, and I actually recognized one of the girls. She used to be my friend in 5th grade, but now she was unfortunately vaping, and that's how I kind of knew that this is an actual issue in our school district, and it doesn't just affect, like, a certain population of our school. It can really affect anyone, whether it be, like, someone who skips class or someone who's a straight A student, which she was.
Mhm.
So, that's how I knew that there was kind of a problem, and that's how, I kinda wanted to take steps to solve it.
Well, most high schools, I believe, in Ohio have it's mandatory that they have at least 1 semester of health,
Mhm.
and usually that's freshman year, and, you have it in middle school too, I think in 7th maybe. So, was there much talk, much education about this kind of thing when you were a freshman?
So the way Mason City Schools works is that you can take health really any semester in order to
Okay.
graduate. Um, However, it was only 1 semester, like you said.
Mhm,
There wasn't really much talk about substances. It was more focused on, like, the human body system, sex ed,
mhm,
things like that, healthy relationships. There wasn't really anything regarding substances. Where there was this thing called the DARE program,
right,
Drug Abuse Resistance Education, which
mhm.
was only in 5th grade. As for health class, I don't recall there being any health class other than, like, DARE and then health in high school.
And that was why I actually started my coalition was that's what I found out. When I first found out about the vaping, which was I want to say in 2018 maybe, and
Mhm.
started this, and I started asking questions about what information was given to the students, about substance misuse, whatever. The only thing I ever heard was what I just already said, that it was only for a semester and it depends on the teacher as to how much information they wanna share.
Exactly.
So and then, at least out here in Forest Hills, that's it. I mean, you have it that 1 semester, and it's not revisited, and you think about the difference between a freshman and a junior or senior, that's a very big jump, and
Yeah.
yes. So did you first start noticing, like you said, some of your peer group getting engaged in this?
Yes, I did. I mentioned my friend in 9th grade, but, especially as, like, the grades, like, increased,
Mhm.
the more workload we had. So, like, AP classes, clubs, college applications, and that was a really stressful time for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And so, I felt like they kind of turned to substances in order to cope with that. Another thing was, parties, obviously. I did see a rise in substance misuse, during like homecoming season or Halloween or, Christmas even. So that was obviously really interesting because people are actually going out and trying those things. Um, and experimenting and seeing what it's like. And once you try it, that's the end of that. You continue to do it. Um
Many people do, that's for sure, many students do, and then, of course, we can talk about how that doesn't really work out very well because I wanna hear all about your program, but, so many of the teens, start with, from my everything I've been a part of for 7 years now, is starting with, the vaping and the nicotine, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then, it might eventually, of course, hook them pretty seriously to the flavors, and we haven't been able to seem to ban those, and, yeah, so then it goes in that direction, and is that what you kinda saw too? The different flavors kinda can get the kids and
um so I didn't really see much of, like, the different flavors, I guess. It was more I feel like the flavors cater more towards the younger kids, because they have
Mhm.
things like blue raspberry flavor, cherry f those sound like candy to
Mhm.
me, so I feel like they kinda go towards the younger kids, but I'm sure that at my school, people kind of engage in that. What was really convenient, though, was how that vapes are actually, like, designed to look like certain school supplies, so, like, highlighters,
Mhm.
pens, stuff like that, so that's what I really noticed rather than, the flavors.
And it's so hard for the teachers and the administrators, to recognize some of these different things, like the highlighters. I mean, they look like Sharpies. They look like,
Mhm.
and then how these have all escalated. with increased amounts of the nicotine in them, like Elf Bar, things like that, and then the kids, can do that in their bedroom at home,
Mhm.
uh, and, use those, rolled up paper towel holder stuffed with, dryer sheets or whatever and blow through there. And the parents have no idea that this is going on. And how did you, when you first thought, gosh, we got to do something. I need to do something. What made you think you had to do something?
So I feel like this is a problem in every high school now.
It is. It
Um,
is.
there is, an issue with obviously drug education. Some kids
Mm-hmm.
think that, it's stupid and it won't really make an impact. Others think it's kind of funny and, oh, it will never happen to me. And I think that that really has to do with the fact that, rather than kids, adults are teaching it. If I'm correct, I believe DARE was started in, like, the '50s or the '60s, and it's
Mm-hmm.
still going on today. That just doesn't work for today's youth, especially with the rise
Mm-mm.
of social media and cell phones. So, what I realized was that we really needed, a youth-led and a youth-created prevention education module. And so yeah, that's when I feel like I kinda had to do something, and so I worked with my school's HOSA club, and I eventually created Escape the Vape.
And what is that club? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so HOSA is, Future Health Professionals of America.
Oh.
Um, it actually was the club that exposed me to, the prevention field. I'd heard about it, but I'd never, like, dabbled in it. I always thought that, like, public health had to do with infectious diseases rather than, drug prevention and stuff like that. And so when I got involved in HOSA, which eventually led me to CADCA, Community
Mhm.
Coalitions of America, yeah,
Yep.
um, that's when I started learning about all this kind of stuff, and that's when I knew I kinda had to do something because this was a problem in my school.
I mean, I think that's just amazing. I do. I think
Thank
that's
you.
just so amazing to have a young person that wants to take the responsibility, which you're not involved in it, but to help your friends and your peers. And you're 100% right. Dare I'm sure all of these things, when first designed, they thought it was a good idea. You know, um, Nancy Reagan with the just say no, that doesn't work. I mean, it was certainly well intentioned, but
Mhm.
it doesn't work. And now what we're sort of seeing and saying is just say no, KNOW, because students are smart. And I think, and I would have to see if you would agree, that they wanna know the science behind some of this stuff. They wanna know what it's doing to their bodies. And, once you can really educate them about that, I think it makes a difference. So tell us a little bit more about the process of starting, Escape the Vape.
So as for the process, obviously I had to get the school's approval. So
Mhm.
I talked to people like the superintendent, Dr. Jonathan Cooper of Mason City Schools. He was really a huge part in making this a reality. What I also did was, I interviewed people like the guidance counselors and the school resource officers who have probably seen things like this, whether it be at parties or on school property. Um, at our school, there is also a club called Click, Comet Leaders Initiating Change. And that's basically kind of like a subsidiary of, a coalition we have here, the Warren County Substance Abuse Coalition.
Mhm.
And so I talked to them about, what they've seen in terms of vaping. I also got help from Xavier's, Center for Population Health.
Oh,
I talked to the director um, of the center and learned more about vaping in kind of Cincinnati area schools and in-school suspension opportunities that they had, and I kind of drew on that inspiration to create Escape the Vape.
yeah, that's always a tough one with schools about the punitive, reactions. So, when a teacher does find a child doing this and, or whatever, you know, and they have to do this. I'm not certainly not judging. They have to do some sort of punishment, be it, a suspension, that type of thing. Obviously, they take the vape away usually. In fact, they have stockpiles of them and then try getting rid of those. But they have to figure out how to handle this. The piece that's missing has been missing is the education for the person that they have caught. I'm sure they let the parents know, and maybe sometimes the parents are very surprised. Maybe sometimes not so much, but this escape the vape that you're talking about that you started is so important for the education component, and then the resources for parents to, go forward is to try to help their child to not do that. So, how did you write it or how did you, come up with the concept?
Um, so really, how I came up with the concept was, um, obviously through my interviews with, the school resource officers and the counselors,
Mhm,
kind of compiled like a list of things that, needed to be changed. Another thing I did was, I worked with other members in my HOSA club, Future Health Professionals, and
mhm,
kind of had like a brainstorming session, like what was wrong with, vaping today? Like what can we improve on? What just doesn't work anymore? And kind of got their input as well, just to create the toolkit, obviously. It
mhm,
wasn't just me creating it. It was a bunch of HOSA members as well as, getting
mhm.
help from the Center for Population Health at Xavier or getting feedback from the school superintendent, things like that. So, yeah, it was kind of a collaborative process. Another thing I did was I looked at the CDC's website and found out, actually, to my surprise, that most kids start vaping around elementary school.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of that before. I always assumed it was, when they're older, middle and high school.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
guess due to the start of social media, TikTok, Instagram popularizing these things, kids are
mhm.
starting even younger now. And so that's when I knew it had to be implemented at our elementary school, Mason Intermediate.
Right. Yeah, I'm exactly with you. I found out the same thing when I first started this. I thought, oh, high school, we've got to like,
Mm.
make the impact there. And then I realized, oh no, it should be junior high. It really needs to be junior high. And then I came to the realization that we had to attack this in elementary school and educate.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I don't really think that's happening. I mean, it might be out in Mason. I'm so excited, but I don't think in general, at least out here, that that's being taken that seriously, But my daughter is a fifth grade teacher and she had a child, oh, this was several years ago, come up
Mm.
to her and say, hey, have you tried vaping and whatever? He thought it was so cool. His uncle had turned him on to it, his uncle. And she, my my daughter's kind of funny anyway, but she said, well, if you want to know what that's like, go out and put your lips around the exhaust on my car. And that's kind of that's how bad it is for you. So,
Yeah.
so, but, yeah. And when I first told her that, she said, didn't think that was even happening yet. But
Mhm.
then she came back and said, "Oh, yeah. Oh, that this discussion had happened, and you're 100% right. So your focus was the elementary, and that makes total sense. And there's a lot of elementary kids out in Mason. Like, there's a huge school complex, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had heard. So how was it received on that end from the elementary teachers?
So the way that we kind of did it was, obviously I mentioned our DARE class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were able to get in touch with the DARE teacher. I also had him as a 6th grader, at the time. So he kinda knew me already,
Uh-huh.
but from there, he was really receptive to the idea. He really liked the way that, youth were coming in and talking to the youth were coming in and talking to the elementary schools rather than him. So he
Mm-hmm.
was really
Mm-hmm.
excited about that. Another thing we did was, obviously we had to run it by the guidance counselor at Mason Intermediate, the principal, as well as the superintendent, and they all really seemed to like the idea. They really appreciated how we had a bunch of, high school mentors coming down and kind of facilitating the activities for the kids, and,
Hmm.
I think the kids really liked it too. I feel like they had a lot of fun, as I can tell by their responses to the post survey. And yeah, what really stuck out to me was the fact that we were, serving as mentors and friends, and I feel like that just made them all the more receptive to the idea.
Well, peer to peer, high school, older kids to younger kids, I think is a proven recipe for success. The kids want to emulate, cool kids coming down and talking to them, and they're going to actually listen way more so than a teacher or a parent, even, talking to them. And so, I know a lot of schools have like Good Apple that come in and do reading with the kids and other things like that. But I think the peer to peer makes so much sense. So, was there any pushback about you getting out of school to come over to the elementary? How did that work?
So in our pilot year, I was a junior in high school, so 11th grade. And we did that on the day we took the ACT. So literally, I had like my little sister, as well as another girl running it in the morning while I was taking the ACT. And then I had to come over there and talk to the kids. So that was a really busy day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Stressful.
yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we had that, and, the school seemed fine with it, obviously, because it was a remote learning day for the high schoolers, and so obviously we had peer mentors who'd be able to work there because they didn't have school that day and they could just come out of school. However, this year we did have some issues with leaving school and kind of coming there. I didn't realize, and this was partially my fault. Well, this was fully my fault actually. Um, that we had to run it by the high school attendance office. And we have
Oh,
actually yeah, because, Mason got a new principal who is, much more interested in our attendance, so we actually had to go to each of the teachers that we'd be missing and get a piece of paper signed. So we
okay.
didn't Yeah, and that was, like, I think a few days before we had to actually go there and present it, and, so that was really hard, and along
Mhm.
with that, our dare teacher over at the elementary school wasn't available until like late April. And so we were in the middle of AP exam season. So it was kind of a struggle to kind of find peer mentors, but we ended up making it work. And yeah, it
I
was
mean,
pretty.
you have to be so proud of yourself. I mean, not only do you get the idea that something needs to be done, and then actually put together a program, but then you have to facilitate it.
Mhm.
And you're not in charge, I mean? Like, you have to do it through the teachers, and I assume, like, that some of you drove, that you could drive from the high school to the elementaries, but a lot of times, I know with some of the peer things here, they have to arrange buses, to go from one to the other, and then that's another layer of, difficulty. Yep.
Yeah, lucky for us, the elementary school is like right down the road from the high school. So it was within walking distance, but most of us drove over there.
Yeah, that is convenient because 'cause you've got
Mhm.
that all in one building, right? The elementary, certain grades are all
Yeah.
together. Yeah, versus, like out in Forest Hills, we have 6 elementaries, and they're all over the entire
Oh.
township. So that buses or driving would be an
Mm.
absolute necessity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, whenever you get an idea and you think, "Now this could really work," whatever, it's working out all the details that make it really challenging.
Mhm.
So, how did your peers, your high school peers, treat you or act when you first started thinking, we've got a problem here?
Um, so obviously, there was some pushback at first. "Oh, this is probably just another like Dare rip off or something like that." Or,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, this would never happen to me and stuff like that, but that's just simply not true. Um,
Mhm.
However, the people I worked with in HOSA, they were really, receptive to the idea, and they also agreed that, this was an issue that we needed to solve, and so we
Mhm.
kind of went from there. Um However, I feel like, especially our grade and the grade below us would really benefit from the Escape the Vape program simply because, you know, at the time we were the upperclassmen, so we were the role models for everyone at
Mhm.
the school. And as
Mhm.
a result, we were the most stressed with AP exams, ACT, college prep, stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I think that we would have really benefited from the Escape the Vape program where we focused on coping mechanisms and protective factors rather than scaring kids, with popcorn lung and things like that.
Right. Yeah, because we know that doesn't work, even though, I mean, I had run into a mother at one of those like CADCA things
Mhm.
that said her daughter was in and out of children's hospital here in Cincinnati, with just what we're talking about in the
Yeah.
very beginning with the nicotine vape. But now things have, I guess I would say, I don't want to say escalated, but I guess in a way they have. That because I just interviewed Dr. Bonnie Halpern out in San Francisco or no, Sanford, and
Yeah.
we were talking about co-use, and that so many of the vapes now, and I love that that's what your thing is, escape the vape, because it doesn't specifically target, even though it probably did to begin with, the nicotine, but the THC now that they're putting in the vapes with the vape pens
Mhm.
is another huge issue with very different side effects, I would say,
Yeah.
medically. So what did you see with that?
So I didn't really see a lot of co-use. It could be happening right now,
Mhm.
as we kind of gear up for another school year, but in my time at Mason, I didn't really see that. Obviously, I knew that people were kind of doing like obviously I knew that they were doing like weed and stuff like that separately, but I didn't think that they
Mhm.
were using it like that they were like vaping with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People at my school, they're more focused on things like the menthol flavor.
Mhm.
I do remember one day, it was the bathroom in my sophomore year of high school. I was trying to
Mhm.
get out of I think I was trying to get out of honors English too, so I went to the bathroom, and, in the stall, I remember distinctly it smelling like this really potent kind of cherry flavor, and I knew
Mhm.
that, "Oh my gosh, that's a vape," 'cause, it smells so unnatural, really, so
Right,
I
right.
think kind of more of the flavors in the menthol rather than, smoking THC and stuff like that, but obviously vapes are a gateway drug and they can lead to so many more things like opioids and illicit drugs. So, it really is an issue um at Mason and I hope that we can take steps in the right direction to prevent it.
And I think Mason isn't unique. I think what you started to say in the very beginning is it's everywhere. And I
Mhm.
think that, parents that think it's never going to be my child, are just delusional themselves because hopefully it's not. But, just had Dr. Grimes on, who is the college doc and is your headed there. And she was saying that, the way that it works for getting started with some of this stuff, you have this perfect student, you're probably that student who's never done any of this stuff that, really is just focused on their career, their future, and
Mhm.
then what happens is they get super stressed. Um, tests, exam weeks and things like that. And, they have somebody in their dorm, their even maybe their suite mate, whatever, that says, oh, you know what? Just take this Adderall. Just take this one time. This will really help you to stay focused, or whatever. And it's that kind of thing that starts sometimes, a lot of times on, down this rabbit hole and can lead to other things. And then, of course, now with the fentanyl poisoning in a lot of the pills and in the cocaine and even in some THC, you it could be a one and done, one pill can kill.
Yeah.
So, all of this starting with the elementary and explaining life is so important and you only get one brain. And all of the things that you're teaching them, the coping skills, the get outside, run around, don't, all of those things are so important. And we as adults and parents think that that's just a natural thing that they should know, but they
Mhm.
don't. But were you ever, at all bullied? Not bullied all the way, but I mean, like, oh, here she comes, Miss Anti-Vape or whatever. Did you ever feel like that?
Um, no, I don't think so.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I think, Mason schools as a whole is a pretty inclusive school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, there is a problem, but, not that many people engage in it, at least, like, in my kind of circle.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't really, like I don't wanna say bullying, but there was some sort of, like, pushback at the very beginning, like, that people thought that, drug prevention was a little, like, stupid. But I wouldn't say that there was, like, personal attacks on me, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
surprised too, yeah.
Well, I think there's a perception, and true or false or whatever, that high school can be just such a challenging time. Um, from an emotional standpoint, like being left out, whatever, and then, finding anything that's your Achilles heel and then going after it. But I don't know. I had 3 daughters that went through high school, and now I've got grandchildren that 2 have already through, one's a junior and more to come, and I've never gotten that impression that, that there's a lot of that goes on. I'm sure there is,
Yeah.
but it's not been my experience to hear about it as much. So it gives me hope that the kids are, valuing each other a little bit more and not
Mhm.
and not going in that direction. So when you decided what to put into this program, did you do any kind of a test rollout, or did you just jump right in and start it with some of the kids?
So we kinda just jumped right in.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the way that Escape the Vape works is that we kind of had an introduction in terms of addiction. So, if you know who Trish Luna is, she wrote a book
I
called
do.
Yeah,
Lammy. Yeah, Lammy,
yeah,
whatever.
Lammy
Uh-huh.
learns about addiction. So we actually
Yes.
started with that, and, I think the kids really liked that. They got to hold the little stuffed animal and, read
Mhm.
the book, and, that was something I think they really enjoyed, and that was kind of like our starter into
Okay.
addiction, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then we kind of broke into 3 different stations. So, the first station was, things to do with grounding and mindfulness. The second station was refusal skills.
Mhm.
That's my personal favorite because that's
Me
really something
too.
that we hadn't, talked about even when I was in DARE. So,
Mhm.
we actually had high schoolers write the script, like, and, kind of demonstrate, how to say no to vapes and stuff like that. And then at the very end of the refusal skills, we had the kids kind of, like we had like a play
Like
and like
role play.
exactly. So like,
Role play, yeah.
we would give them like a vape, not like a real vape though, like a fake one.
I got you.
Um,
I gotcha.
yeah, and then the
Yeah.
kids would have to like, say no to it. And that's something that I feel like they really enjoyed.
Mhm.
The last station we had was building a support system. So, obviously that's one of the main things to do because I feel like at Mason, a very academically challenging school,
Mhm.
kids often turn to substances as a way to cope with stress. And, building a support network would really do them good. And so, yeah, we had each kid write down kind of a couple people that they knew. Um, that they would go and talk to in times
Mhm.
like stress and hard.
Stress. Mhm.
Yeah, and then they would kind of, they would play like a game and they would get to know their fellow classmates. And they would rotate through each of those 3 stations. We spent about, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes at each. And then at
Okay.
the end of class, we played Jenga. So,
Mhm.
we wrote down a few questions about substances or about building a support system, really
Mhm.
about things they learned that day on each of the Jenga blocks, and then the kids would pull them out and, answer them in front of the class. and that was really their favorite part, I feel like. What I was really worried about, and I'm sure the others were really worried about too, was youth hesitation. So whether or not the kids would want to participate in the Escape the Vape program and whether they would want to do the activities. But actually, they were really receptive. And I feel like they really enjoyed themselves, especially at the end with the Jenga.
Well, and they were learning, and,
Yeah.
you never know what the takeaway for them is going to be. You said you did a post survey, and that's
Mhm.
always exciting to hear what their thoughts were. But, I'm talking about, like, say they're in the 5th grade, like you said, and now they're, maybe a junior or something, and somebody offers them something, or an opportunity exists to try something, and one little thing that they learned, comes back into their brain, and they think, "Oh, no, well, that's probably not a good idea." I mean, that's really what it's the repetitive, information that's rolling around in the brain, and their brains are so undeveloped.
Yeah.
When they say that a brain is not fully developed, I think with males, it could be like 27. I always laugh about that with my husband. And then, females maybe 25. I don't know. I mean, that changes periodically. But when you really think about that and the decisions that are made during those years, hopefully you have wonderful parents that guide you to what you want to do and are supportive of everything you want to do. But
Yeah.
that's not always the case. There's many parents are not all created equal, and
Yeah.
every child deserves some cheerleader in their life, somebody that they can go to that's going to encourage them. And so I think that last thing that or what you were saying about them writing down a couple of people that they could go to, and I think the tip off is when they can't write anybody down, that, then maybe an intervention of some kind is sort of important because, they all need it. And yeah, so what would you like? How do you push this? You said there's, the Mason schools are doing it and that several other schools have implemented it. How did that come about?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I kind of got connected in the prevention world through HOSA.
Hmm.
Um and as a result, I was kind of involved in CADCA through a joint collaboration between the two organizations.
Hmm.
So I served as a Great Lakes representative for the CADCA Voices for Youth initiative. So that's what kind of
Oh.
really created Escape the Vape. And
Hmm.
um through that, I also got involved in CADCA's ENYAC, the National Youth Action Council, um,
Okay.
which was really kind of devoted to, youth voices for drug prevention.
Hmm.
And through that, I was able to network at CADCA's mid-year. Um, I met these really great people, and they actually allowed me to present a little bit about my toolkit in front of a CADCA breakout session. And so that really kind of, got the word around to other people, whether it be youth or adults. And they really liked the idea. And so they implemented it in their own schools.
So great. So, like, if you had, after this podcast, let's say there's, some schools or somebody that's interested in what you've done and how to do it at their schools, who would they contact or how would that work?
Yeah, so they would contact me.
Okay.
Um, I can give you my contact information. My email is ssilva0417 at gmail.com. So
Okay.
for anyone who's listening or watching this, if this sounds interesting to you, just feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay. Well, I can, when this launches, which will probably be probably a few weeks from now, when we put this on YouTube, I'll put your email. I just didn't know if you wanted to put your personal
Oh,
email on there or not,
yeah.
but I can, that's for
Yeah.
sure. We can put that on there if they're interested in doing that. But I was just thinking that I'd like somebody at our school system to maybe just at least look at it and think
Absolutely.
about doing it. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, it makes so much sense. And as I said, I do have a daughter that's a teacher in the 5th grade at one of the
Mhm.
elementaries. So I might just shoot her that information and she can listen to this too. But I just think it's just so wonderful to have a young person that sees a problem, decides it's a problem, decides there's probably a way to address it, that is better than what's currently the DARE program, and certainly better than just say no. And so, I mean, what are you going to do now in college? Probably not. I mean, you're going to be busy. Pre-med, yeah, you're going to be busy. But I mean, will you sort of just kind of stay connected to CATCA, or what are your plans?
Yeah, so I'm trying to become a TOT at CATCA, a trainer.
Hmm.
Hopefully that becomes a reality in the future. Um, I also wanna continue the Escape the Vape program, so, we're probably gonna still keep doing it at Mason. I'm looking to get in touch with the superintendent of CPS,
Okay.
to see if this could be a reality over there. Um, I've also gotten in contact with, a coalition up in Columbus, the Prevention Action Alliance. Um, so
I'm
hopefully
familiar.
yeah, hopefully I can, get involved in that, with especially with the, Ohio Prevention Conference coming up. I hope to kind of, work with them. Another thing that I'm looking to do is, when we were discussing, flavored vapes earlier, that would really be a dream to kind of take steps
I
into
know.
those. Yeah,
Hmm.
as well as, also kind of advocating for more drug prevention, content in schools,
Hmm.
because, like you said, it really depends on the teacher, and it would be really good if, if there was, like, kind of a statewide kind of timeline for learning about drugs and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah,
so
the weird
yeah,
part about that, just to get back with what you said, is I had understood that all school systems that get state money, there's a mandate that they have to do a certain amount of um, drug education,
yeah,
K through 12, K through 12. So not just
really.
freshman year for a semester. And I don't really understand how they get around that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they had to do it every single grade, like, I certainly didn't get that. Um,
I don't know what the workaround on that law is. But it's Ohio revised code. I mean, I've read it, and I don't know. I'm like we said, there's hardly anything that happens sophomore, junior, senior year, at least out here. So, and the thing is that so many of this messaging could be across all subjects, or a lot of them. Science could certainly talk about the stuff. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that seem to me to be somewhat lost, but
yeah,
yeah. Oh, I'm
for
so
sure.
glad to hear you're going to continue doing some of this stuff.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, I'm really excited too. There's actually, at Ohio State, I'm a part of the Moral Scholarship Program. Um,
Oh,
so we're actually able to kind of, take steps into learning about policy and leadership and stuff like that. And that's something I really hope to break into.
hmm,
Hopefully even take steps into banning flavored vapes, although it might take a bit of time.
yeah,
Obviously not in
unfortunately.
4 years,
Hmm.
but yeah, that would be really great. So
Well,
yeah.
you should contact, if you haven't already, you probably have, your state rep.
Yeah.
And also, for the Ohio Assembly, and also maybe even the speaker. It never hurts. It never hurts, and it really never hurts to get in front of them. Like go up there and get an appointment and just say, "Hey, this is what." It's all about the politics. Unfortunately, it's
Exactly.
yeah, it's a little more challenging that way, but um, you're young, and you're passionate, and it's going to take young people like you to do something like this and change the things, because I know out here, and probably up near Mason too, there's a lot of vape shops, and they are selling to kids under 21. We know it. um
Yeah.
they've been, and unfortunately, getting back to the policy part, there's not much of a slap on the wrist for any. I mean, that's what it is, a slap on the wrist. There's not much teeth in it to stop them from doing some of the stuff that they're doing. And
Yeah.
and it's our future. It's our future that we're
Exactly.
allowing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always say that to parents. You know you mentioned COVID when you were in the 8th grade or whatever, but COVID, parents were hysterical that their children, of course, didn't get sick, but that they didn't get their grandmother sick because she
Mm,
had more potential to die. And everybody was just but more people die from substance misuse, particularly the fentanyl, than ever died, I think, here with the COVID. And yet people don't seem to want to embrace that and see how serious it is and make sure that some of these things that there's more protection for our because they are being victimized by big pot and big
yeah.
tobacco. And that should outrage us as adults and parents. It really should. So,
The good thing with, things like that, is that there is really, like, to any, like, youth watching this that may be dealing with something similar at their school, there
mhm,
is to still make a change. Like, when I
absolutely.
Escape the Vape, we did pre and post surveys, and, I feel like based on the data we had, kids really learned a lot. Actually, in terms of refusal skills, I believe it kind of increased by 10%. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so kids really learned a lot, about, saying no to drugs and having
Mhm,
a support system and things like that. So there is time to still make a change, although I feel like, there should be more education. Like,
mhm.
it shouldn't just be in 5th grade or 6th grade or 12th grade. It should be across all ages or at least, like, in all grades. So, yeah.
I agree. And I often say, once you're like over when your brain's fully developed, over 27 or 29 or whatever, I don't want to ever say I don't care about you, but my focus has always been about the teens
Mhm.
and young adults. But I witnessed so many what I still consider young people in their 30s and whatever, just puffing away on those vapes. And I mean, going in and out of the grocery store, whatever, you can tell what they're doing. And it's just if they think for 1 minute that that's going to cause them not to smoke or that that's safer, that's a education problem as well, and I don't think
Exactly.
they know that or understand it. So, you're 100% right.
Yeah. A really common misconception, especially on, like, social media and
Mhm.
TikTok especially, is that vaping is safer than smoking, and
I
that's
know.
just yeah,
Not
that's
true.
just simply not true.
Mm-mm.
Even things with, like, E-Valley,
Oh, yeah.
it's just simply, not the case, and that's something that, we really have to drive home even during the Escape the Vape program, is that, no, this is not an excuse me, this is not an alternative. This is
Mhm.
equal, if not worse,
Right.
smoking cigarettes.
And we
S
don't even know how much worse. That's the scary part.
Yep.
We know it's worse but we really don't know we know the formaldehyde that's in there. We know a lot of the substances that are in there, but we don't know them all.
Mhm.
And so, and then yeah, it's too scary. And then the kids, of course, are doing, some of the gummies and things like that. Now I'm
Yeah,
getting off track from the vape, but vaping can cause you, either to be more stressed. That's what usually happens. But it can lead, like you said, to be the gateway to trying some other stuff. And then,
exactly.
oh heavens, it's just unbelievable. Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time and being on today and for the work that you've done. I think
Thank
it's just amazing. And I can't wait to see some of the stuff you're going to do in the future because it's going to be great. I know and I can tell.
thank you
So,
so much.
we will definitely put that information when this launches on YouTube, and I will, of course, send
Yeah,
you this podcast. And but to have an opportunity to actually talk to somebody young that's going through this, been through this, seen it firsthand, has been a wonderful opportunity for me. So, thank you so much, and good luck at Ohio State. Go
thank
Bucks!
you. I can also send you
Yeah.
we have the, toolkit actually publicly available,
Oh,
so I can
good. I
send you
didn't
that
know.
as well. You can put it in the description box, and I'll even,
Please.
and my email as well, so, yeah, just
Please do that. That would be great. Because
feel
yeah,
free to reach
this
out to me. I'd
Oh,
love
I
to work.
will.
Yeah.
I will, even to just see how you're doing. So, Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandalee. It's
Thank
great
you for
having you
having me.
on. Thank you so much, Sandalee, for this honest and forthcoming discussion. What a privilege to actually talk to someone who is so dedicated and so interesting that can actually talk about the experience of being in high school with her peers. And thank you, audience, for listening. You can see these podcasts on YouTube, social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also access them on our website, which is www.stepupanderson.org, and listen on Spotify. Please share and, most importantly, subscribe and follow us so that we can reach more parents to save our children. Thank you.